We are going to learn about some of the USA states that are either called swing states or they are called battleground states. They are called swing states because if you check the last 10 presidential elections, they were swinging from one side to another side. You'd find that in a certain presidential election, they voted this way, and the other presidential election, they voted that way. So you cannot predict. You cannot predict. We have American states which are like Kenyan states where decision has already been made, whereby you hear things that such as someone saying that we are going to vote this way because baba alisoma na akaona ni mzuri, or baba has approved that candidate. So if you are anti-baba, it is wrong it is a waste of time for you to go to such areas. And we have other areas where togo kera tene, so as to vote against baba. So you find that if you are a Kenyan, you'll find that if you are anti-baba, it is a wastage of time, energy, and resources to go to an area that is solidly behind Baba. Or if you are campaigning for Baba, it is wrong to go to a place where they say togo keratene. These people togo keratene in the past, because that is an example of the past. In the next election, it will not be that way. But I'm only giving an example of where people have already decided. So such areas, you just go there for, if you are, if it is an area that supports you, then you just visit that area for what we call ceremonial visit, isn't it? There are those who just go there so as to be seen, to be traveling all the countries, because if you avoid your home area, not home area, if you avoid an area that you are popular, then people will read between the lines. Or if you avoid areas that you know they'll not vote for you. In both scenarios, you find you visit such places, but very little, so as to be seen that you have covered the whole country. Now in America, most states are either Democrats, who are called the Blues, or they are Republicans, who are called the Reds. So there is the red state and blue state. Those ones, don't waste your time, just as I've said. Then we have the swing state or battleground states. They are called the swing state because if you count the last 10 elections, the qualifications were as follows. 1, the last 10 elections, they did not vote one way. You'll find there's a time they voted this way and there's a time they voted that way. And another thing, the margin of winning. You'll find that whoever took that state won under a very small margin. For example, you'll find that in the last election, so-and-so won this state by a margin of 0.01%. And in most states, apart from a few in the northeast of the USA, in the most of the states, if you win even by one vote, you take all the delegates. So that is why you find that people there really go there because it is swinging. Yeah, I said that is the definition of swinging, and I'll now give you the other name. The other name is battle states. They are called battle states because that is where the battle is. That is where the resources, time, and energy is spent. That is why it is called that. You'll find that a running mate for any political party is usually chosen with a mind of, now let us say there are 4 or 5 swing states. If I choose my running mate from one of them, it means that I've already grabbed one, so there are remaining less one. So the selection of a running mate also decides. The other thing that you may have noticed that swing states are in certain regions. I know of 3 regions. One is west of the country, in those desert areas. They are called sunshine areas. You go towards the west, Kina Nevada area, just before California. Those are usually swing states. So towards the west, they call it Midwest. And then towards the northeast, in the areas of the Great Lake regions, you go to the Great Lake regions, you will find many of the swing state or battle. I said swing because they swing every election, and battle states they are called so because that is where the real election campaign and everything happens. And then we have, I said in the northeast, and then in the southwest, especially the state of Florida. I said especially the state of Florida. That is why you find another thing that also, I talked of the 3 areas. I talked of westwards, the Midwest. I've also talked of Northeast and Southeast. You'll also notice that these states that are battleground states they usually have so many delegates. There is no need for you to spend a lot of time winning over a state or a province that has 3 delegates. You'll always fight for a state that has many delegates. Now, how many are these delegates found? How do we find that every province or state has to produce delegates? The USA has 50 states. They have 50 states, and each state has 2 senators. And then it has constituencies. The constituencies there, they call them electoral districts. Now, if I have to give you an example of Kenya, Nairobi has 18 electoral districts. And let's say the governors, 2 governors. So 18 plus 2, that is 20. And Lamu has 3 MPs and 2 senators using the system there. Of course, Kenya, every county has 1 senator, but in America, every state has 2 senators. Let us assume that Lamu is a state. So Lamu has 3 MPs and 2 senators. So you find that Lamu has 5. Nairobi has 18 plus 2, 20. So if you fight and win a state, a big state like Texas, like California, you don't go for the small ones. Now, if you win in Nairobi, which has say 20, and somebody else wins Lamu, he will have to win Garissa, Mandera, Wajir. Still, he'll not reach the 20 you have. So that is, you'll find that most of these swing states have many delegates. And these swing states, also something that many people do not notice, is that they have diverse voting patterns. They have diverse voting patterns because if you go to certain states, you'll find, like New Mexico and Texas, they have a lot of Latinos. So you know how to handle Latinos. But if you go to swing states, most of them, they have very many different people. Florida has blacks, they have people from Cuba. So you find they have so many different voting patterns and different, different counties or electoral districts have different people. What am I doing? Let me give you an example of a Kenyan situation. We are in Nairobi. We are in Nairobi, and you can find that in Kawangware and in Kangemi, there are so many Luhyas. There are so many Luhyas. So you find that in a state like a swing state, there is a district where there are Luhyas there. There is another district where there are Luos there. Then there is another district there, Somalis there. Such and such a thing. That is how swing state is. If you go to other states, you find you can guess a lot of political, economic, social, and whatever expectation. But in a swing state, apart from it having very many delegates, it's also have very many expectations. So when it comes to voting, if the let us talk of if the Democrats want to take that state, it has to go to those areas, those areas that have the people who are known to be their people. So they go and campaign and then pray God that Somalis in Isili don't turn up in large numbers. Because if Somalis in Isili turn up in large numbers and Luhyas in Kangemi turn out in low numbers, I'm only giving an example of the Kenyan situation for somebody to understand. And how did they come up with these delegates that certain states have? I've already said that each state produces the number of MPs they have. But you see, MPs in that country, they call it House of Representatives. So they produce as equal number as the number of House representatives in that place. And then the 2 senators. Previously, when America was still young, a Democrat, it used to happen that the senators and the MPs, the House of Representatives, are the ones who used to vote. But they later changed and said every candidate has to campaign in each and every constitution, in each and every state. I almost say it province, each and every state, so that when they have campaigned in those states, if you win by even one, then you take all the delegates. Even if you win by one, you take all the delegates. And that is why you find that all swing states, if you look at them, their voting patterns, whoever takes all the delegates usually win by 0.01% to win in that province. It reminds me of Florida. Florida, there was a year, I think it was the year 2000, when Jeb Bush rigged the election in his brother's favor. Jeb Bush is John Ellis Bush. So JEP, they call it Jeb. What happened was, let us take an example of Nairobi. Allow me to take an example of Nairobi. Jeb Bush knew that Luhyas in Kawangware, Luhyas in Kangemi, and Somalis in Isili will vote for the Democratic Party. So he delayed, he refused to recognize elections in those areas, in those electoral districts that he knew would. So he knew that if those, let's say, the governor, what is the name of the governor? Sakaja. Sakaja knows that Sifuna is going to be the senator for, or Sifuna is going to win Nairobi. So he would, he'd block the Kangemi and Kawangware so that Luhyas don't turn up and Sifuna does not get Luhya votes. And without those Luhya votes, and you know the margin area is so low. The margin area is so low that if those 2 counties are removed, then the results come and swing the other way. And that is how it happened. I have talked of extensively about I've talked extensively how American system and other system, because that is the presidential election we are holding in Kenya, and that is what is held in America. I have recorded my first few tapes were recording, doing to different electoral systems, and I would request you to read through them so that you know how the American system works. In my next video, I'm going to talk about independent, and I'm also going to talk about public opinion. Because in America, even before the elections are counted, when major news channels like CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, when they declare so and so the president, he becomes the president. But on paper, what happens is that once people are elected, then they count the votes. Then after a few weeks or a few days, they go to a congregation, kasarani ya huko, to decide the president. In law, in American Constitution, the delegates are not bound by who sent them. For example, if your party wins this, if your party wins this state, it is given the 14 delegates. Now, if those 14 delegates are taken to Kasarani and one or two, or even all of them do not vote according to their party, it is allowed. But what happens nowadays is, once the major groups have called, it's called, they make a call. You see CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, they just come up and say, according to the elections, what we have heard, we now declare Hamala, the 47th president. Why am I saying Hamala to be 47? You know, she's a lawyer from Ikolomani, and they said that Kenya has 47 counties, so lazima 47 atoke Kenya. Anyway, let us meet in the next video. Thank you.